How's everybody? In this video, I wanted to talk about Waikiki. This past weekend, I journeyed, 20-30 minutes into town. I usually don't go to Waikiki because it is pretty crazy and nuts and always busy. But I went in with the intention of this time filming and wanting to really just give a general, accurate and honest and objective review of how wheelchair friendly Waikiki Beach and kind of the surrounding area, the strip basically, of how accessible it is. If you somehow stumbled upon this video, thank you for clicking on my face. If you're new to the channel, I'm Koryo. I make videos about what it's like to live in a wheelchair and live with paralysis and all things spinal cord injury. If you want to follow along the journey, go ahead and do what you gotta do. So for those of you guys who are not familiar with Waikiki, it is not an island. Waikiki is technically a neighborhood in Honolulu on the island of Oahu. Here's a map. The area of Waikiki basically is like a big long strip. I think it's 3 something square miles, but 2 miles from one end to the other. And on one side, or the Makai side towards the ocean side, has just kind of a sidewalk and beach. And then the other side, the Mauka side, towards the mountain, has restaurants, hotels, places to eat, shopping, so on and so forth. Parking. So what I usually do is I park at the zoo. So if your hotel is not walking distance to Waikiki Beach itself, I would park at the zoo because it's free. It's lots of space. Go early though, if you're gonna go on a weekend, because they do fill up fast. However, when I was there, they it did open up, and people were in and out. Or even park at Kapiolani Park, which is also towards the zoo and towards the Diamond Head side. There's handicap parking over there as well. In terms of actually getting around in Waikiki itself, along Kalakaua, it's actually super flat, and I didn't seem to have too many issues. As a C5, C6 quad and a manual wheelchair user, I think the biggest obstacle was probably maybe weaving in and out some people, but this is earlier in the morning, so there wasn't too many people out. Also, if you're not used to the Hawaii heat, that also can be a big factor in terms of being out. The pavement itself for most of Waikiki is this stone ground. It's really flat, and even though it does have some grooves between, it doesn't really mess with pushing. The curbs in Waikiki too, they also did a really good job of making sure that they are all up to date and flush and not have very many issues. There's probably maybe one or two that I didn't feel comfortable with going over. Actually, one area I did have trouble with was this pier, because you can see the bottom has collected and accumulated some sand. Underneath it is that same rock textured ground, but when a lot of sand gets on, that is no good for us wheelchair users. For beach access, there are actually a few spots where cement and pavement leaves down to pretty close to the beach, but actually not on the beach. As I rolled down through the strip, I tried to adventure and look for all of the different ones that were available and that I could get to. There is one area that I wasn't familiar with before, but there is a cement that leads all the way down to these tables and pretty close to the beach. It's actually on the beach, but if you wanted to have lunch, just cruise it underneath the trees and in some shade, this is like the perfect spot, and it's paved. You can just roll underneath the table. It's pretty cool to find this one. So the designated beach access or the blue mats are at a portion of Waikiki called Kohiu Beach Park, and if you still cannot find it, it's really in the middle. But also just look for the Duke Kahanamoku statue. It's huge, and he has lays all the time, people taking pictures. It's right to the right of that. You can't miss the bright blue mats. The beach access mats actually take you to about in the middle of Kohiu Beach Park, and I didn't have any problems going down. But as soon as I tried to go back up, these little grooves in the mat, they're kind of lipped up. And as a quad, sometimes just a little uneven surface can cause you to lose balance and become stuck. So just be safe and make sure someone is there with you just in case something bad happens. All right, so my final thoughts on Waikiki Beach and its wheelchair accessibility. I would give it, in all honesty, I'm trying to be objective. I'd give it like a solid 6.5 to 7 out of 10. So the positive things at the end of the day, it's Hawaii. It's the iconic Waikiki Beach. So just being there and experiencing that, if you haven't done, is definitely a positive, and I would recommend it. It's also super, super flat. There's hardly any inclines, hardly any obstacles. All of the curbs, like I said before, are pretty well done and accessible. So on the negative side of things, or not so positive, I'll be honest, the number one thing is, it's always crowded. There's just always lots of people, especially right now because of the pent-up demand for travel and everything opening back up post-COVID. It's just super, super crowded, so you have to wait for a lot of things. Oh yeah, at the time of this recording, which is mid-July 2021, it doesn't sit right if I don't bring up the current mood and conditions of what it is here. From locals and tourists alike, I saw in the news the other day that visitor satisfaction rating is like 70 something percent, as opposed to being usually in the 90s. That's because here in Hawaii, it's still we still have COVID restrictions. Restaurants aren't at full capacity, can't meet the demand with everyone that was out of work and still trying to come back into work. Heard crazy things about prices for rental cars. Again, super crowded. Locals here are just too much tourism, too fast, came back way too fast. So just kind of keep that in mind. In my honest opinion, I would definitely wait until all this is over. I would wait probably, after the summer rush, because it is a little nuts and hectic, especially if you're in a chair too. We're traveling with someone that has limited mobility, just trying to get around, and not having everything, up to 100% can pose some challenges. So my honest opinion, just wait before you do come to Hawaii. Hawaii will always be there. At the end of the day, if you do have the opportunity to come to Hawaii and Waikiki, I would definitely recommend you experiencing it, just because Hawaii has a special place in my heart, and it's just a beautiful thing, beautiful place, and just something I feel like is a bucket list kind of thing. If you guys have any questions or comments or anything that has to do with Waikiki, or better yet, if you have an idea of where I should film next, or even if you even like these videos, just let me know. I'll try my best to answer them. But I think that pretty much wraps up this video. So to the next one. Okay, bye.